Hello and welcome to Opening Pathways. I'm so glad to see you again. This is Tom Lenoble, and I'm excited today. I've been waiting for this podcast. I have Renee from Scroll.care.com with me today. Scroll.care has reimagined the process of accessing care by creating a platform to connect you and your loved ones to vetted, reputable care providers at the push of a button. Renee, we have to know about this. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm great, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. I too have been looking forward to this time together and just want to thank you and thank your audience for taking time to spend time with us.
Yes, and I have to jump right in because I've been really wanting to ask you some questions, and I want to know what inspired you to start Scroll Care.
Well, has been a bit of a journey. I have to be honest about that. And I'm going to go back a little bit. I actually started in the technology industry way back when and spent 22 years in tech, and even worked as a CEO eventually and spent 10 years as a CEO. And then as life would have it, I found myself on a different path and was working in the adult care industry. And I tend to look at business through the lens of a CEO. And in that industry, I found, frankly, a lot of problems. It was kind of problematic. It was siloed and fractured and had a language that the consumer didn't understand. And unfortunately, all too often, consumers were accessing the industry at a time where they were in crisis and they were looking for support and someone to kind of usher them through a very difficult and frankly expensive time in their lives. And even though that tends to be the messaging that comes out of that industry, it's not always exactly what happens. And so, but I had graduated into healthcare advocacy and spent a lot of time and working with families and working in community as a professional healthcare advocate. And many times people would ask me, how do I learn what you know? And how do I learn how to navigate this? And I knew the answer to that was in the palm of our hands. And so again, as life would have it, it will cue you. And I was paying attention, and I went back to my tech roots and started on the process of figuring out an app and how do we actually bring some of these solutions to the consumer and to their families and really put them on a strong foundation where they feel comfortable and confident and in the decisions that they're making. So Scroll was formed. I started in 2016 researching and doing the market work. And in 2022, we started developing the app, and we came into beta testing in the Sacramento and Northern California market in late 2024, and we launched in January of this year. So it's definitely been a journey, and we continue to learn every day. It's
Yes,
it's just part of the process.
I hope we keep learning every day. I
Yeah,
make it a mission to at least learn one thing every day.
yeah.
I think that this process, for my viewers, I'm sure many of you have been through it. I know I've been through it 4 times, and
Mhm.
if not, you will one day likely. And it is a difficult process to navigate at a stressful time and expensive. And it's about someone you care deeply for at the same time, so supercharged emotionally. Was there one defining moment that got you started on this path?
Um, there was. There was a moment in time where I knew that I felt confident that I had a solution, and that there was a call on my life to make that happen. And even though I hid under the covers that I didn't want that to be true, it I knew it was true. And I had to come out from under the covers and figure out how to make it happen. And but it was watching people suffer and watching people turn in regret, um, about the things that they felt they would do different if they had more information. And my knowledge, again, coming out of tech, that it was about providing a system that would give them that information. And I knew that I had to figure out how to connect those two. And so, and even though it was a calling that you know, I don't want to say I didn't want, it was a big calling. So it was a big ask in my life, and I could easily have settled into what I was doing. I was having great successes. I was teaching. There were a lot of great things going on in my life, but I knew this was a necessity and I had to just step out and do it.
Wow. What were some of the big obstacles you faced early on, and how'd you overcome them?
Well, first of all, I had never designed an app before. And when I was in tech, I was in the hardware business. So I wasn't in the software industry. And software is a very different animal, right? It's a coding process and it's a language that I don't speak. So I needed to find a trusted coding partner and designer and a team that could help this vision that was going on in my head come out. And number one. And number two, I didn't have the money when I started on this journey. Technology like AI was just starting to come into the marketplace, but to get quoted for an AI element in my app, I received quotes of $400,000 and $500,000, and I didn't have that kind of capital. And I specifically did not feel compelled to borrow money to get this done. I really felt in my spirit, in my soul, that if it was meant to be, it would find a way. And I just needed to be a conduit for that and just kind of keep moving it down a path, and that those resources would become available. And I have to tell you, they did all along the way. My consulting business has funded that, and my husband, I have to say, my husband's bank account has funded this journey almost 100%. So we've never had to borrow money to keep moving forward. So,
Wow, you sound very determined to get this done and make this a reality.
mhm.
Um, I'm curious, was there ever a time you like doubted your vision?
Oh, sure, of course. There were times when I would sit in meetings, say with developers. I interviewed several different developers, and I would sit in meetings with them, and they didn't always understand the why, right? Because they just hadn't been to that space in their life. It was a relief when I met someone of a certain age, or maybe had an experience in their life where they were like, oh, I get this. Like, this makes sense. I wish we would have had it, right? I wish I could have had access to something like this. But all too often I was in a room with people that just kind of didn't understand the necessity of it, or what the market really looked like for this type of platform. And time and again, I went back to the market and examined the market to see if I was tracking correctly. And feel great to say that, yes, I know exactly, as it evolved in my mind and as the market proved itself out, it became so apparent that this was the season and the right time for Scroll to come into the world.
Wow,
Mm.
really clear. What experience shaped your approach to leadership?
I was, I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a poverty environment. College wasn't something that was going to probably be successful. No one in my family had ever gone to college. And literally at 19 years old, I bought a $300 car, one of those, remember those station wagons that had like the wood panel sides, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So spent $300 on it. My girlfriends and I brush painted it because it was ugly brown, so we painted it blue. And I had $300 in my pocket, and I headed west. And I stopped when I got to the Bay Area because I was out of money. And it happened to be at a time when Silicon Valley was just burgeoning. In fact, it wasn't even Silicon Valley yet. And so So I had an opportunity in this industry that was really all about grit, to be honest with you. You know, we like to, and certainly we want to give the technologists the kudos they deserve, but the
Yes.
building of technology in that industry was based on the grit of the people that just got out and had a vision and made it happen. I was a female in a male-dominated industry, and I think my leadership came from some of the people in front of me and above me. But also, you know, it was interesting being a woman. You had to be pretty tough and have be able to stand, you know, in your space and own the direction you were going. And so so my leadership just came out of that, right? And then I wanted to bring up people behind me, and I still do. It's my passion to see young people evolve and come up into the space that maybe they didn't know was available to them, but it is available to them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it evolved over time, but clearly it was something that was kind of always there, right? I was the kid that, you know, you would sit in the auditorium and they would ask a question and I'm like, I'm not raising my hand. I'm not going to raise my hand. No, I'm not raising my hand. And then my hand would go up. It's like, okay, fine. So I was that kid, right? Always.
Yes, yes,
So,
yes. I know that I love working with and supporting young people. There's so many times I've heard in my career of the younger generation, they get labeled as lazy or
mhm.
not focused or whatever the label is. And I always reflect that I think they're just finding their way like I was at that time. And I think
Yeah,
we have a responsibility to support them.
yeah.
Um, who were your mentors or key influencers along this journey?
Um, Early in my relationship with the Bay Area, I took a job. The very first job I took was with a woman who owned a small company, and and she was the first female executive, if you will, that I had ever met. And she took me under her wing and you know, guided me and taught me and put me in roles of authority long before I was probably ready. And she would always coach me that you need to, you know, you need to be an example. You need to stand as an example in this role, and you can learn the tactical part of the role. It's all about who you are as a person and how you demonstrate yourself. And so, so she was a great influence on me. Her name was Billy Erickson, and she was probably one of the very first people to reach out in my life and say, I think you've got something going on, kid. Right. So and showed me that what was possible. So, and then from there, you know, I've had there's some great examples, I think, in our culture, that we've, and certainly in the 21st century that we've seen. I was commenting not long ago on Queen Elizabeth, right? And her leadership and the fact that she was just this young woman that was thrown into this role, and she spent 90 years living it out and you know, being present and really, and did it in such a fine way, right? Like how no one can discount her leadership and who she was as a leader, as a woman, as a world leader, right? As a mother. I mean, she was really, really something. And if you sit back and spend a few minutes just looking at her life, it's really something to imagine. And all of the years and all of the change she went through in a country that's not quick to change, right? I mean, it really is a phenomenal story when you look at her, for
It
sure.
is. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. I mean, a woman of true destiny, for sure.
What was the biggest turning point for Scroll Care? Is there one point that something happened and it was just a big turning point that you knew things were going to move forward?
Yes, yes. When the first time, it'll make me cry. The first time I saw what was in my mind come up on my phone was crazy, right? It was a moment where I thought, oh my gosh, everything I had seen in my dreams, everything I had tossed and turned on, everything that I had reams and reams and reams of notes and paper on, is sitting in the palm of my hand. It's the craziest feeling to see that happen.
I
Oh,
love that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
sounds like it was a very moving experience
Oh,
for you.
still to this day. And we continue to evolve. Technology is always changing. And so we're on version 2 already, and we just released version 1. But you have to continuously be sharpening your tool set and sharpening your technology. And the guys that are working on it now really get it. They understand it. They have bigger visions for this app. And again, that's a dream too. They have bigger visions for what it can do than I even have, which makes it great. Now I've got these young people that are completely emotionally engaged in what it can actually do and what they can make the technology do. And that is so rewarding, so rewarding.
Yes, I think if we sleep too long or get too comfortable with technology, we're going to get passed
Oh,
by in a heartbeat. Yeah.
yeah, in a blink of an
Talk to
eye.
me. I'd love to know, tell me about the process you went through to secure customers for Scroll Care. What was that like?
Well, we're still doing it. We're still working on that. So for your listeners, we have a couple of different customers in Scroll, which is interesting. We have the care provider, which is the professional care provider that maybe, and we cover cradle to grave care. So it may be someone that's a pet sitter, right? That you're going in for knee replacement, and you need someone to come in and take care of your animal and look after your home and your pets, right? All the way to afterlife care and that attorney that has drawn up your will and trust, and they're going to work with your family. So we have everybody in between. We have 15 vertical subjects at the top of the app and 126 sub-vertical professionals underneath those 15 top verticals. So that's part of our clientele. And frankly, everything about the app that's robust about the app lives in that space that's called the provider space, right? If you're a care seeker, I'm not a big tech person, which is kind of interesting. My kids still make fun of me about this, honestly. But if I have an app, I think we're all pretty average, right? If I have an app and I go in too often and it says, we're not ready for you yet, we're not available there yet, then eventually I'm probably going to stop using the app. So we haven't really started pursuing the care seeker, the actual consumer that's going to be looking for care, because I'm still building out the care provider section of the app. But what the care seeker will eventually be able to do is go in, start answering a series of questions about what their care need is, and the app will start directing them to vetted providers within that care specialty in their marketplace. So within 50 miles of their zip code. And so it's in my version 2 even adds in a little bit of AI. So you're going to be able to speak to
Oh,
it, and the app will start building out a care plan. So I have a very, very good friend, lifelong friend, who is just diagnosed with ALS. And her husband has said to me, it would be so great if he can talk to the app and ask the app to start giving him a care plan for the next steps of her care as the disease processes. And so we're working on that kind of application right now. So AI really, really will allow us to provide very comprehensive care solutions to the care seeker. And
yeah, I think
we should be ready. I think we're releasing version 2 in the next few weeks.
yeah, AI is such a part of our lives, and
Yeah,
there's such a some controversy around it of many things, and I think some misperceptions about it, and
yeah,
but it's sort of here to stay. There's no question about that, and I think it's time for us to look at how we embrace it. Another
yeah.
one of the things, if we don't embrace in technology, we'll be left behind for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I agree with you. I was one of those people that I thought, I'm not going to go near AI, right? In fact, I was even seated on a couple of panels and was asked questions about AI in healthcare. However, I have learned that it can be a tremendous tool and a tremendous time saver in going out and capturing information and doing research, bringing data right back to us in real time, and allowing us to really make some decisions and take the labor out of some of the work that we're doing. So it has its place. I have cornered it in a little space in my life. And so far I'm liking what I'm getting out of it. My avatar's name is Doug. So Doug and I communicate every day.
Your buddy Doug, huh?
Yeah, my
Um,
buddy, my assistant. He's my assistant,
Little
Doug.
assistant Doug, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about AI and technology. I know my listeners are going to be interested to hear that, there's a balance we have to do with innovation and sustainability. How do we embrace technology and new technology at the same time that we keep the lights on? Any
Mhm.
thoughts about that?
I think that obviously all of us are in different spaces where the use of technology is concerned. Um, I don't build rockets, so I don't know how those guys use it, right? Again, and my brain isn't big enough to understand the volume and where they go with technology. But I do believe that there is a space for it in our day to day, and that it can enhance our life. Um, and I'm actually very excited and curious about where it will go. One of the things that I am committed to, all of us at Scroll are, is we will never take the human being out of the care spectrum. You cannot do that. Care is really about care. And so you cannot, and one of our taglines is humanity first. And that's because in every situation, you're uniquely you, and you're uniquely different than the last person that I talked to about what their care needs were, right? And it's so important, I think, that we never let go of that. And we always understand that we are human beings. We need to be seen and heard and understood. And I don't believe technology can replace that human touch and that part of humanity. I just don't. And I don't want to ever see it do that. I don't believe it can. And I hope I'm right.
I hope you're right too.
Yeah.
Creativity and the human touch are so important. And as you just said so perfectly, we're human beings and we require something more than a machine, for
Mhm.
sure. What
I, I
leader?
cared, I cared for my aging mother through the end of her life. And I've always used her as an example that my guess is that my mother's care looked different than your mother's care.
Yes,
And because they were very different individuals. And I believe that's going to be true of care across the spectrum, that it's going to look different. And that's why we cannot take the human touch out of care.
yes, and we all have different relationships that we lean in on at those times. I know
Yeah.
I did. Um, let's shift a little bit. I'm interested to know what leadership principles you've used as you've scaled your team.
Um, I believe multiple heads are better than one. I love to hear different opinions and different ideas on the same subject. I like to hear that angle and because I believe I have blind spots and your point of view, it may look different than mine. So one of my philosophies in leadership is as long as we all get to where we're going, your journey may look different than my journey. Your route might look different than my route, but if we get there, I'm good with your route if you're going to take the lead on it, right? So that's part of my leadership is I want to see people rise up and be independent and unique in their thinking and how they want to problem solve. So
Yeah,
I also believe that there is a natural um, uh, problem solver and critical thinker. And then there are people that are not comfortable with that, right? And as a leader, it's really good to understand who your critical thinkers are and embrace that. But gosh, you cannot take the tactical people out of this mix, right? Because you're not going to get anything done. It's the task oriented tactical group that really get you from point to point, right? So you can steer the ship, but the ones that are hoisting the sails are the ones that are going to get you there. So you can't forget that. And And I don't believe necessarily in hierarchy. I think everyone at the table is important, and they deserve to be seen and heard and understood in their own processes and what that looks like. So those are really, really core principles that I have as a leader. Some would say that I lead with my heart. That may be true, but I'm at an age that I don't care what you say about me anymore. So I'm okay. I'm good. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Right. So, I've tried other ways, and I feel best about myself when I'm just my authentic self. So
Yeah.
I try not to, you know, rise up to someone else's idea of me or lower myself to what someone else might think I should be. So I just try to be my true self.
It's so much easier to be who we really are.
1,000%. And
Yeah.
it took me 40 years to figure it out.
Took me a few too. Took me a few too, Renee. Tell us, where do you see Scroll Care in 5 years?
Great question. I I believe Scroll, we're working on some cool things right now, Tom. One of my heart's desires that the Scroll would be correct, culturally correct. And if you are, from East Asia, that you can go on to Scroll and you can find resources in the care continuum within your culture. So again, I keep looking at technology and how do we keep bringing technology into the human part of this, right? And make it more human and more responsive to the human beings that are involved. I know we are on that path already. We're already starting to speak a couple of languages in the app, and we've just brought on our first culturally correct provider. So we're excited about that, and we'll really continue to grow in that area. My hope is in 5 years is to see Scroll, actually less than 5 years. I'm scheduled for the next 48 months to see Scroll as a national brand. I liken Scroll as Amazon for care. So where you can go in and you can look for a care provider of a variety of options and be able to meet them, interview them. We never ever sell any of our consumers' information. So as soon as you go in, you're the consumer in control of that relationship. So you reach out to that provider, you are negotiating with that provider, and you have complete control of that relationship. So I want it to be very client-centric, very customer-centric in delivering the tool sets to the client and then the resources to the client, and then allow the client to be able, the consumer to be able to run their own ship, if you will. So in 5 years, I see us as a national brand and exploring the idea of leaving the country and going into some other countries. So I've
Exciting.
already been asked to come into Australia and the Philippines. So
Wow.
yeah,
Exciting. It
thank
sounds
you.
like you're the conduit to care.
For
Yeah.
sure. For
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how do you stay motivated and inspired as a leader?
I read all the time. I learn, I'm constantly feeding my desire to learn and to grow. I read a book a week. I do that in practice. I'm committed to that. And I don't read, I'm not a novel reader necessarily. I like autobiographies and true stories, and I like motivational books and books about business. And I just reread a book about Stephen Jobs. It was written probably 20 years ago. I looked at it in a different point of view today than I did when I read it the first time. And it was fascinating to look at him as a visionary that he really was. And he happened to have been someone that I met that I wasn't really fond of in my time in Silicon Valley, but to look back on his life and his contribution and how he got from point A to point Z where we are today, right? Really takes a unique visionary, and he was just ruthless in getting his vision into the hands of human beings, right? So I read it with a different point of view this time. And I think that's what's great about books, right? every time you can read the same book over and over and you're going to take something different
Yes.
away. And I like to read a real, like a hardcover book, right? I'm one of those people, I highlight the book, I write in the margins, I do all kinds of stuff. So I
Yeah.
terrorize my books, but I'm truly a student, and that keeps me motivated to go the next level and do the next thing.
Yeah, I have a stack of them sitting next to me right now that you can't see, and I like to hold the book too
Yeah.
and flip through it as I read. And I'm with you. I think the rereads at different parts of our lives, we learn something or experience something very different than we did before.
Mhm.
And I too, whenever someone asked me to borrow a book, I said, sure, but watch out for the pasta, whatever might have happened, because wherever I might be reading it, who knows what might happen to it. So
Yeah, yeah. I just had a client pass away, and he had quite a library of rare books, and they're in pristine condition. And I feel so bad for whoever eventually goes through my books, because they're like, what in the world was this woman
what was
doing,
she
right? Because
doing, right? Yeah.
right, right. So
What
yeah.
what trends in technology right now really excite you? We talked about AI a little. What else?
I am excited about some of the smart house stuff, right? Some of the things that just make our lives more convenient. I love, my family and my friends joke and give me a bad time because, one of the great things that I brought out of the pandemic was using technology to have delivery services come to my house, right? Like I don't want to go in a grocery store anymore. I have people that do that. And it's a relatively low cost, in my opinion, for me not having to drive and go there and do all that. So using technology in that way as a convenience and elevating my day-to-day life has been just wonderful. I have a car. I drive kind of a fancy Italian car, an Alfa Romeo, and it has a lot more technology in it than I know how to work. But every once in a while, it'll tell me, maybe you need coffee because because I'm crossing the line too much, so it does have technology levels in it
Yes,
that
yes.
I know can do more than I know how to do with it. I just, it comes with like a 3-inch manual, right? So I need to sit and read the manual, but I love that driving and what technology has done for the driving experience. I think that's cool.
Yeah, my car will
So
speak to me every now and then, and I just know to say thank you. And
yeah,
you're probably telling me something I need to know. Thank you. It
yeah,
always tells
yeah,
me not to forget my phone. And even when I have it in my pocket, I still say thank you because I know there's going to be a
yeah.
time when I might forget it, right?
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, mine says hello when I turn it on. And then
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I, if I tend to, unfortunately, I'm one of those floaters, right? And it'll say to me, do we need coffee? Like,
There
do
you
you need
go.
to,
There
do you
you
need to
go.
stop? Are you tired?
Are you
You're
tired?
crossing
Yes.
the
Well,
line.
hey, you never know when you might need it to tell you that, right? So pay
Right,
attention
right.
and say thank you is what I say.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So,
I
and in healthcare, I see technology, you know, um, I see us using, again, technology as a source of convenience in healthcare. But I'm also seeing it in care for people that are homebound and bedridden, and conveniences that are available to them that we didn't have just a short time ago. I mean, just within the last few years, right? So we're starting to really see technology come in and make a difference in people's lives, and that's where it matters.
yes, yes. Renee, I'm curious, what piece of advice would you give to someone just starting out on a path to start something that's singing to their heart that they feel they must do? What would that one piece of advice be that you would give that person with new aspirations?
So, so I believe, I love this question, Tom. I believe that life, nothing that we lay our eyes on is by accident. I believe that we're part of a large, call it creation, right? An energy source, and everything that we look at was destined to be done, right? So I believe that when our heart tells us that we need to move into something, it's because it's part of a bigger picture. And it's not always about us. It's not always about us as an individual. It could be something bigger or someone else, right? And so when we choose not to move forward for whatever reason, for fear, for lack of money, for whatever those reasons are, we could be holding something back that is really, really significant to the whole, right? And we're all in this together. And
We
so
are.
when we use our gifts and our talents and that movement in our heart that says, I need to paint this picture, or I need to build this house, or I need to, you know, use technology, whatever it is, I need to cook a great meal for my neighbor, right? We should be so inclined to do those things, even if we don't want to, or if it seems big, or if it seems out of the normal for us, because we're part of a bigger plan. And unfortunately, life has we're in a culture where we silo ourselves too much. And, if we would come out of our headspace and recognize the people around us, we really, really could grow so substantially as
Yeah.
individuals, right? And so our growth is when we're serving each other, not just serving ourselves. And the bigger the dream, does it necessarily mean it's harder? Not always, not always, right? It may be, scroll, which was a challenge for me. There are people that have much greater challenges, but the task may seem simpler, right? Or the task is much greater and their skill sets don't match. But if you just keep stepping out in faith, I just believe life will deliver what you need when you need it. And you
Yeah.
just keep moving forward and you'll get it there. You'll get it done.
Yes. Those are some empowering and inspiring words, Renee.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank
And
you.
Renee, thank you for being on Opening Pathways today. It's been a delightful interaction here today, and I'm hoping we can
Thank you,
do a
Tom.
round two sometime.
Yep.
So this is Renee Balcom from Scroll.care joining me on Open Pathways today. And I want to thank you, my viewers, for joining us as we've been interacting today and sharing ideas with you. We'll see you on the next time when Opening Pathways features again. Thank you.